for this one, we actually ended up did some network and everything, found someone that was willing to do private lending. That dropped the rate significantly to just above, what's required by the IRS. So right
Mhm.
around like upper fours. But that
Yeah.
was extremely helpful. So that's what we ended up rolling with. Literally exhausted every type of creative funding that we could to get this because we knew it was a stretch. But at the same time, I sat there and we talked and thought, like, this is probably the cheapest over my lifetime that this land will ever be. Just generalization with land appreciation at some point, like, this is probably during my lifetime the cheapest that it will ever be.
Yeah.
10 years from now, when I want to retire and buy land, then my kids are going to be older, the expenses are not going to be any cheaper. Like, there's always something that's going to come up. So we were like,
Yeah.
this is probably our best shot to do this.
All right, Logan, welcome to the Land Podcast. How's it going?
Good, Jake. I'm glad to be here. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, we had talked back and forth on Instagram here for a while, and
Yeah.
it seemed like you've had a little bit of an interesting journey up to this point. But before we get into all of that, you're in Georgia right now. What do you do for a living, just so everyone can get a frame of reference for the episode?
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm a active duty helicopter pilot in the Army. Currently stationed down in Savannah, Georgia at Hunter Army Airfield. So I've been doing that for about the past 10 years, bouncing all around from New York to Fort Rucker, Alabama, Fort Drum, New York, and then Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and then down to where I'm at in Georgia. So kind of been all over the place, and recently had an opportunity to come up to move back to my home state of Pennsylvania and take a job up there in the National Guard. So still be doing like my active duty day-to-day thing up there, just in the National Guard.
Mhm.
But it brings me back home where I grew up, South Central Pennsylvania, and close to family. Back to some good hunting and not this little rough, slim pickings down here in South coastal Georgia. But looking forward to that. So we're
Well,
excited.
that's funny that you're looking forward to going back to South Central Pennsylvania in comparison to
Oh my
Georgia.
goodness. Down here it is rough. About a year and a half ago, I shot a real nice 7 point down here, and you have to take it to a check station on post.
Mhm.
And they put that thing up on the scale, and they're like, "Man, this is one of the biggest we had come through here today. You want to know how much it weighs?" I said, "I really don't." And I guess backstory: they pulled the jawbone, had their biologist on site there, so they aged him, and they're like, "Yep, he's 3.5, good mature buck." And they're like, "He weighs 84 pounds." I
Oh
was
my
like,
gosh.
"Oh man, this is way different than anything that I'm used to. I'm gonna have to shoot 6 of these things down here just to fill the freezer up." So we're I'm ready to throw the towel in down here and move back up north.
Yeah, no, man, that's awesome. So how long have you been in Georgia then, specifically? And then, um, I guess
Yeah,
that's yeah.
we've been down here for about 4.5 years now. Did a small stint for about 6 months down in Alabama, and then moved right back to South to Savannah. So
Mhm.
I've been down here for about 4.5 years, and takes me up to about 10 years total. And come the end of January, we'll be moving back up and moving back up to our house.
Just right around the corner. No, that's super
Yep,
cool.
be here before we know it.
So, when did you start looking to buy a piece of ground? Because it sounded like you kind of knew you wanted to get back to Pennsylvania. Is kind of what I'm picking up. So, were you saving up and saying, "Hey, I want to buy something back in Pennsylvania, and try to get, back to home"? Is that kind of what happened?
It was actually about the complete opposite of that. It was
Mm.
just fast and furious. The job opportunity came out of nowhere.
Hmm.
I was getting ready um, to do a rotation this summer, and the job opportunity came up. I interviewed for it, got accepted for it. So it was like bang, bang, bang. And we're like, well, this is about June, July timeframe. We had to start looking for a house up there, and so that kind of just started our search. And
Hmm.
I'll be honest with you, we have always been, my wife and I have always kind of lived, beneath our means, nothing super crazy. So we were planning on doing the same thing up there, just finding, a house that fits our family on, an acre, 2 acres, and calling it that. And then I had some grand plans down the road when I retired here in about 10 years to then try and make the jump to get
Hmm.
the farm.
Hmm.
Kind of led us to where we are now. And I will not lying to you when I say this, like, your podcast here is the reason that we are moving on to the piece that we are,
Man, I
because that
hope
was
that's a
not
good.
on our radar.
I hope it's a good thing. I hope it works out to be an awesome thing for your family.
It is going to be great. So we really lucked out, and just listen to this day, like, every day on the way to work. I got an hour commute on the way to work. I only live 24 miles from where I work, but
Oh
it
wow.
takes me an hour to get there. just because of traffic down here. So I listened to every episode pretty much in one shot just on the way to work,
Uh-huh.
and that 100% influenced us to where we are right now.
No, that's super cool. That's really awesome to hear. So let's kind of dive into it. So you got the new job position. You're thinking you're going to buy this regular house. Hey, let's just park here. In 10 more years, I'll have 20 years of military experience because you're able to retire or get a pension after 20 years of military, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, so that was kind of the game plan, and then you got a crazy string of inspiration from the Land podcast and said, "Hey,
It was.
let's get something a little bit different." So, what was that like, and what was that conversation like at the kitchen table?
Yeah, I mean, it was a wild ride from the beginning. So we went up there once I got back from my rotation and visited with my family who was up there in Pennsylvania. Just took a little week long vacation, looked at some houses up there, and there was one property that was listed crazy high, like much higher than where we wanted to be, pretty much twice as high as where we wanted to be. But it was on 40 acres, bank barn, old 1870s farmhouse, 40 acres, and then it had a spring run through it. Some of the best trout fishing um, in one of the native trout streams in Pennsylvania. So I grew up in that area and had always said, "Man, it is my goal. It is my dream to end up owning a piece of property along this body of water." And it came up, and it was on the market, and it had been sitting there for I think about 45 days by the time we got up there. And we're like, you know what? We're up here. Let's just go look at it.
Hmm.
Went and looked at it and immediately fell in love with it. I walked the entire property. I took my brother with me. He's a senior up at Penn State with a forestry and ecosystem management
Oh, cool.
degree. So he was up there, like, giving me the whole tree education and habitat and all that. So um, we have hunted since, I mean, I can remember. I was 8 years old tagging along, and back then, when I was young, you had to be 12 to hunt in Pennsylvania. That was before they had the whole mentored youth program. So I would be out there in the woods with my dad, and then when I was 12, that was when I started picking up the gun and the bow and getting
Hmm.
after it. So having 40 acres, it was all wooded, was a dream come true. So we ended up putting an offer in on that. Went back and forth a little bit, and then finally settled on a price. And we immediately went under contract on that
Hmm.
while we were up there in a week. So my
Wow.
wife, she was there with us, and she's like, "Man, this is an awesome property. I love it. Let's do it. This
Yeah.
is too good of an opportunity to pass up."
Hmm.
Went back and forth a few times um, through the whole process. Got through inspections and everything. With a property that old, there's just a lot of risk with the outbuildings and everything like that in the house itself. Um, and ultimately, unfortunately, just going back and forth with the sellers, like we weren't going to meet where we needed to be, so we ended up having to terminate on that property. And at
Was it
that point,
was it because of the like what specifically on? And you don't have to dive into this, but was it just a bunch of different things that came back on an inspection report?
it was, and then just some disagreements about that report and
Sure.
what needed to be done. So the price that we were at, I mean, it was probably upwards of close to 13 to $15,000 an acre, which is
Hmm.
just astronomically high. Up there, the property in that specific area, property price ranges from about 7,000 up to 15, $16,000 per acre.
Hmm.
A lot of factors play into that. One of your podcasts mentioned about taking pictures of all your big bucks that are on the property,
Yeah.
and that 100% on those wooded properties drives the price up. And everybody takes advantage of that because there's good deer, but I mean, it's South Central Pennsylvania. We're
Yeah.
talking like 130s, 140s, but that gets people excited because I mean,
Yeah.
it's
That's a
not
big deal.
super common. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, yeah, just things are going back and forth and negotiating, and the price that we were in on that, like we just didn't have the reserves that we needed to put in to make that property immediately livable. And I've got a young family, so I can't afford to be doing that right now and
Yeah.
getting into a project where we just can't, immediately move in and live there. So
Yeah.
that was a bummer, but it ended up working out for the best.
Yeah. So basically, you guys terminated, couldn't get the terms through basically the due diligence period or inspection
Yep.
period, and then you're back to the search, and like you're
Back to
still
square one.
and you're on the clock here too because you have to find a
Yeah,
place to live.
absolutely. And then, through the course of that, whenever you go through the pre-approval process and you realize like what your buying power really is, we were like, holy smokes, this is going to be very expensive. We're going to be strapped monthly, but we can do it. But then, those smaller properties of the 1 to 2 acres with a house below our means
Mhm.
looked really enticing at that point. And we're like,
Yeah.
all right, maybe we should we should do that again because it's super slim pickings up there. When a property comes up, agriculture, with any kind of like remote little bit of agriculture on it or woods, you have other local farmers, the Mennonite population, primarily, who are going to come in and grab that immediately. A
Yep.
lot of good farms up there, transferred to Mennonites, and I mean they hunt those farms hard, and they get their money's worth out of them.
Mhm.
So that was kind of what we're up against. It's pretty competitive up there, and searched for a little while, but just nothing coming up on the market that we were interested in. And so we were getting a little bit discouraged about it. I thought, well, if we're back to the plan A of, in 10 years we'll reevaluate it. Um, and then I was kind of doing just the end of the night doom scroll on Zillow, just hunting,
Mhm.
and I found the property that we are getting right now. Prior to that, I had, again, from your podcast, listened about writing all these land letters. So I genned out like 60 land letters. I dropped a pin on Onyx, dropped like a 30-mile ring, and just identified every farm that had any kind of woods,
Mhm.
water sources or anything like that that I knew would produce at some level for hunting.
Mhm.
And was kind of close to where I needed to be for work, but close to family, and just sent out a mass blast of handwritten letters. Got pretty good response rate. I think it was around like 10-12%. So
It's
I was
pretty
happy
good.
with that.
Yeah, it's
It
pretty
was,
good.
yeah, it was. One actually came back and was like, "Hey, we're not ready yet, but if you're still looking in like 2-3 years, give us a shout because we're looking to move out to Colorado with family." And that was like a 25-acre piece. So
Mhm.
worked out, but nothing came back from that. So on that doom scroll on Zillow one night,
Mhm.
I found a property that had been on the market for, I think, probably close to 115 days at that point,
Mhm.
several price drops, and I was like, "Well, I know exactly where this is at. It's great property. Um, let's take a look at it." So we did, and put in an offer, and that was all she wrote.
Dang.
Yep.
So, did you guys go back up to take a look at it, or did you have your brother look at it, or your family look at it, or were you
Had
familiar
my
enough with it?
yeah, had my brother look at it, and then my realtor is actually my mom. She
Oh.
has been doing that for like
Heck
16
yeah.
years up there, so
Yeah.
she's got quite a bit of experience and knows that area. So she went out, she FaceTimed us, and my brother
Yeah.
went out and walked the property and was like, "You got to buy it.
Uh-huh.
You got to buy it." So ended up doing that. Um,
And so that had a house on it too?
it did. It
Okay.
did. It already had a house on it, so that
Yep.
was another incentive. And then the interesting part about this, of why it was on the market so long, was it's in a conservation easement.
Mhm.
And again, I'm gonna say this about every time. Every story that I have has like an episode that ties directly to it. With
Uh-huh.
Jared, from the Habitat
Yeah.
podcast, talking about 1031 exchanges, and then
Yep.
his property that he got into with
In Northern
conservation.
Michigan. Yep.
So, yep, exactly. So after that podcast, I reached out to Jared and I talked to him on the phone. I was like, "Tell me everything about
Yeah.
these properties and like what you're looking for." And so we kind of discussed and went back and forth on that. And so what ended up happening is I called the actual conservatory who owns that conservation easement. Prior to us putting an offer in on it, they were without an executive director, so they hadn't been giving out a ton of information to everybody else that had been looking at it. But
Mhm.
whenever I called, they had a director, had some clear guidance of like what the left and right limits were, sent me a copy of the easement documents, and actually the other realtor, the selling agent, had them. He sent them over to me. I combed through them from top to bottom, read every bit of it to see, how strict it was, what was in place there. And one comment that Jared had made was, the conservation's goals are my goals. And the more I looked at this, I was like, well, that's 100% true for me too. I don't want to subdivide this property. I don't want to like put a whole bunch of outbuildings on it all over the place, because that
Mhm.
ruins, what I want to do with it as far as hunting habitat, and, any agricultural goals or anything like that. And outside of that, like, that was about it. I mean,
Mm.
you can still do some management as long as you have like a forestry management plan. And I've got my
Yeah.
brother right there with his forestry degree to be able to support, submitting a plan for approval. So, I mean, we were ready to rock and roll. They were excited about it, about the potential of us owning it and having a working relationship, which was, I think, pretty huge. I mean, um, I think half the battle is having a good working relationship with that conservatory to make sure that everybody's on the same page. There's no violations, but there's a good working relationship to get
Yeah.
to a common goal.
Yeah.
So ended up working out.
If you want to know where property boundaries are for public or private, you want to develop a great plan for your farm, document perfect access to a blind, to a tree stand, carve out and measure food plots, connect your mulch trail cameras to an app that shows exactly where they're at, and you can look at the feed for that specific camera location, then Onyx is something you need to check out. It is the only mapping software I use when it comes to deer hunting. I've tried other pieces of software, different apps, and I always go back to Onyx because I think it is the most comprehensive, easy to use, and robust mapping software there is when it comes to hunting and land ownership. You want to send a pen to a friend, boom, send it to them right to text, opens it up. Maybe you have notes, maybe you have pictures on that pin, transfers all of it. You want to send a whole entire folder of a plan that you mocked up, you can do that on Onyx. So be sure to check out Onyx. They are a huge supporter of the Land Podcast. They allow us to travel around and talk to some folks that can give you really good insight and good information no matter where you're at in your process of buying land. Let's get back to the conversation. Yeah, well, I think that's a huge benefit to be able to call someone that's already bought something in a conservation easement. And I think that I often get a lot of different calls and messages where people see a property like that and like, well, what do you think? And a lot of times, and I don't want to generalize here, but sometimes it seems like, let's say the going rate's $5,000 an acre, and then there's a piece
Yeah.
that's like 4,500, and it's like, man, I think that delta is probably a little bit bigger based off the
Yep.
limitations. But if you're able to get a good enough deal, then I think, yeah, that makes perfect sense, especially if it fits into what your goals are. So I assume that probably fell
100%.
within those parameters where you're like, okay, this is a big enough discount where it makes sense. We understand what we're getting into because we did the due diligence, we read the document, and
Yep.
there's going to be no buyer's remorse in that sense because you know what you're getting into. That's half the battle is knowing.
100%. Yeah. And I think that's what deterred a lot of people was that unknown, because when you're going to spend, that amount on that kind of property, I mean, you want to know what you're getting into and what you can do. And everybody that buys land wants to be able to do whatever they want on the
Right.
piece of ground that
That's
they
why they're
own.
buying it. Yeah.
100%. 100%. So figuring out a way that I can still do that with the conservatory was huge, and working with them. So it was a little bit of an obstacle to navigate, but I even went in, I met with them, I sat down face to face, and we kind of talked about everything and
Mhm.
got a good warm fuzzy about it. And I was like, all right, well, let's rock and roll.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Yeah. Was there any part of you that's like, man, I don't think I want to buy this because it's in a conservation easement? Like throughout that whole due diligence period, because it sounds like you got more and more confident with each touch point because you learn like, okay, this is what it is. Like I
Yeah.
know the unknown is going away because I do know. But was there a period where like, man, I don't really know if I want to get into this ball of wax?
There absolutely was. And it was actually about a month prior to me re-looking at the property, because I had
Mm,
forgotten I had looked at it,
hmm.
read through the documents that were attached, and I was like, this ain't for me. This ain't for me. I want to be able to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
If I want to, like, plant this or plant that or make this habitat, I want to be able to do that. I don't want to have to ask anybody. I don't want people walking around my property all the time.
Yeah.
And that was just a misinterpretation on my part of what I thought I was understanding about it. And it's
Hmm.
not that way at all.
Hmm.
They're super non-invasive, and another generalization, I would imagine that most conservation easements are. I think Jared's was the same way. Like, they come out once a year, check
Hmm.
on it, make sure you didn't clear cut the whole place. Hey, thumbs up, good to go.
Yeah.
So I think that's the extent of it. And once I kind of realized that, I was like, yeah, like, this is too good of a property to pass up. But 100%, I looked at it about a month prior, and I said to my wife, I was like, this isn't it. Nice piece of property, lots of great woods. I know there's some good buck in this area, but
Hmm.
not for us.
Yeah, I think, and not to add another layer of clarity for a lot of different people, like there's a lot of different variations of conservation and easements too. So it's like,
Oh yeah.
do what Logan did and go get a shovel and dig in to know what you're
Yeah,
getting into potentially because
you
there
have
can
to.
be a lot different. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they can tie those. The initial people that set them up, they can be as strict and outline down to the minute detail of what they do want to be allowed on that property and what they don't. So it's completely at the original owner's discretion of when that conservation easement was put into place. So
Hmm.
if they have a pretty tight easement agreement, you may be a little more hamstringed than otherwise. But this one, luckily, was fairly loose and
Hmm.
just had the end goal of not being subdivided, not being clear cut, not being developed.
Yeah,
So it's all
yeah.
about
Because
that.
I know there's somewhere. This was pretty early in my real estate career. I think I was still in college when I got my license, and I found a sweet farm I couldn't afford it. I was still a senior in college, and
Yeah,
I was like, "Oh man, this is a sweet farm," and it's super priced low. And then I dove into it, called the agent, and that conservation easement did not even allow hunting at all. And
right.
I was like, well, that's why it's priced so low. Like you can't
That's a
even
deal
hunt
breaker right
it.
there for
Yeah.
like almost everybody.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
was like, "Wow, that's why it's, 70% of value." But
yeah,
so just to illustrate to what you just said, like, there's a lot of variation, so, like, if you just see this, don't necessarily think of Logan's story, go in and do all your own research because there's a lot of variation, within that. But, what about the house? You guys are gonna live here, so we gotta talk about the house.
yeah.
Or was it like, were you blinded by the property and like, "Oh, yeah, the house will work," or was it like, "This is perfect for everyone?"
So it was it was built in the 1980s. So I mean, it was a little dated. I say a little dated. I guess 40 years dated now at this point. But great bones. I mean, it's solid brick, and it's got the capacity to. I've got two kids right now, so there's plenty of space for all of us. And then if we ever decide to have another kid or anything, plenty of space to have some other folks. Needs a little bit of updating,
Sure.
but we're happy to do that. But it is livable at this moment,
Mhm.
by any stretch of the means. And I mean, it's not even like a little bit of a sacrifice to move in there. It's got some quirkiness to it. I mean, it was built back in the 80s, but
Yeah.
it's it's good. I mean, it's everything that we could have asked for. Great bones, great house set back up off the road in the woods. So I mean, it's got it.
It's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Was there anything in the conservation easement when you dove through there that you're like, "Man, I don't feel great about this because I maybe would wanna do something within that easement that is not allowed." So, like, is was there anything, or is it pretty much just a subdivision and not, abusing the property?
Yeah, so there was some intricacies to it. One of the big rumors, and it was funny that you mentioned this, was that hunting was not allowed on the property.
Mhm.
So I specifically asked that because when I read through it, I didn't see anything that alluded to that. But I was like, "Hey, this is kind of the rumor floating around." And the guy actually he laughed. He's like, "Where'd you hear that from?" I said, "Well, all my buddies live up here and they all hunt. That's the rumor been for forever." He's like,
Yeah.
"No, that's not accurate. You just can't put in a permanent tree stands." I mean, and so I said, "Well, what does a permanent tree stand entail from the conservation easement's point of view?" And they said,
Yeah.
"Well, nothing bolted into any trees." I was like, "Okay, so all my hang-ons, everything
Yeah.
like that. If I want to put a portable like blind up there on stilts, like I'm good to go." And he's like, "Yeah, absolutely."
Yeah.
Um, but outside of that, the way that it's structured, there's a minimal protection area, a standard protection area, and then like a high protection area. Um, just throughout the structure of the easement, there's actually no part of the property that's enrolled in the high protection area, which is the most strict that you can be. So you can pretty much do nothing if any of your property is enrolled in the high protection area, because that's either due to like an environmental concern that they're wanting to preserve some kind of endangered species of something, native plants, animals, whatever you have. And then the standard protection area, which is what I'd say 99.9% of the property is enrolled in, and then minimal protection area. That was the part that gave me a little bit of pause because when the original owner enrolled it, there was a 1.6 acre perfect square around the house of minimal protection area. And that essentially allows you to, that's kind of your freebie area of around the
Mhm.
property. So garages, uh, chicken coops, whatever you can think of.
Yeah.
That's kind of your area to do that. It's not super huge. So I was kind of concerned about where that was located, but luckily, it ended up just following the wood line. So the woods that was already established, and it is completely all old growth white oak and hickory, and that's primarily what it is. I mean, just
Mm.
loaded with white oak, hickory, black walnut. Can't really touch any of them. Um, but I went out, and when I walked the property, I made sure that there was enough room that if I'm going to have 55 acres, like I'm going to need to have equipment to maintain this 55 acres, put in
Yep.
food plots, like whatever I want to
All the
do.
fun stuff.
Exactly. And there's no outbuildings on there. So I got to have somewhere to put that. So if I want to build a garage or something here or a pole barn, for the purpose of agricultural use, I got to be able to do that. And luckily, there's a spot within that minimal protection
Yeah.
area after I went out and walked that I realized I could do that. Um, there's not a super big amount of storage within the house, so that was a little bit of a concern because just the way it's built, I would say almost all houses in that area have basements. This is kind of built into a hill, so there is no basement. The ground floor has some spare bedrooms and everything, and then there's the upper floor, which is above grade. But outside of that, like not a ton of storage. So that was the
Mhm.
other motivator of, well, got 2 kids and a lot of stuff. We have to be able to put this somewhere, and with all my hunting stuff and everything
Yeah,
like
right.
that, like got to be able. So that was the only part I would say that gave me a little bit of pause. Um, was is there enough room that I can, you know, put something in that'll facilitate the management of this property. Because what I would hate to do is not have anywhere to put like a tractor or anything like that. And I have 55 acres that I'm supposed to,
Manage.
maintain and
Yeah.
keep as much of native fauna as I can. And now I don't have anywhere to put anything.
Mhm. So with the white oak, hickory, and walnut, if you were to do some sort of, are you able to do some sort of thinning of that uh, in the future with a forestry plan, or is that something that they don't want you to do?
As long as there's like a net benefit to the overall ecosystem, I think they're
They're open to it.
pretty on board with that. As
Yeah,
long as, like I said, as long as you're not thinning for to clear cut the place. But
yeah,
I don't think that it would even be close to that. But when our conversation with Jared, he said the first thing that he did was do a select cut and
yeah.
thin some of it. So that may be in the future. I gotta work with them a little bit and submit the plan and see what their thoughts are. But as far as I know, I do have the ability to do that.
Yeah. I hate seeing white oaks get cut. I don't know. I love
I
all.
do too. I do too.
I always
100%.
a little bit of me always gets sad whenever I see it, but I guess
I know it.
that's
If anything's going to come down, it's going to be there's some hackberry around there that's growing
yep,
up around those white oaks. So if I can thin out some hackberry and really open up those white
yeah,
oaks and let them do their
regenerate,
thing,
yeah,
like I'll
yeah.
be all about that.
Yeah, no, that sounds
Absolutely.
awesome. That sounds super awesome. So, what about for the lending side of things? When you get a signed purchase agreement on this, you submit it, and then the underwriting team's like, "Wait, what's this? What's this attached easement?" And I don't know
Yeah.
in Pennsylvania if it's abstracts or title, whatever it is, but
Yep.
they're like, "What? Well, Logan, what's this encumbrance on the property here that we're going to lend against here?" Was there any hoops to jump through there?
There was, and we had pretty much explored and exhausted almost every type of creative lending solution that we could, from looking at FSA loans for like first time farm
Yep.
buyers. That eligibility criteria is, I'm not going to say fairly strict, but there's some, specific requirements that you have to have, and
The
just
one thing that
based
bugs me with the first time farmers loan is you have to be farming in order to get the first time farmers loan, and
exactly,
it drives me nuts. And
exactly.
I understand they have to have strict parameters with that, but it's like, okay, well, the chicken or the egg conversation comes into place here. It's like, well, how can I be a first time farmer if I, it just
Yeah,
kind of
you
cracks
gotta
me up.
gotta own a farm before you can buy your first
Yeah,
farm.
yeah,
Yeah.
it does
So
crack me up. But anyways,
that was tough because it says 3 years of farming experience within the last 10 years. Well, I've been active duty for the past 10 years, so I'm not working on too many farms.
yep,
Um, so that one was kind of out the window, which was a bummer because I mean that's guaranteed up to 600,000 for the loan, and then at a pretty decent cut on the rate of what you're going to get with any
it is
conventional loan or even like an
super
FHA.
competitive. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. So that was a bummer. Um, Looked at being military with the VA loan, but we currently own a house down here in Savannah, so my entitlement is tied up.
oh, I
Um,
see.
so I didn't have enough left of my entitlement without selling this house uh, to look at that. Still a pretty competitive rate, better than like just a conventional loan.
Mhm.
The only thing that made us a little bit nervous with going the VA route is how strict they are on appraisals and just kind of inspections.
Yeah,
So inspections, I wasn't super worried about. Appraisals was going to be huge because that only covers the residential value. They're not looking at livestock, crops, any outbuildings or anything like that. Nothing, just solely the house, and the land is what it is. If it's in a conservation, I don't even know if they would how that would work with them, if that would be a deal breaker or not.
mhm.
So we ended up not pursuing that, and
And I think real quick too with VA loans too, I
yeah,
think if there's tillable ground on it, um, I wanna say I had this, happen in the past where there was a little bit of cash. It was a very smaller farm, so I call it 10 or 15 acres, and there was maybe
yeah,
5 acres tillable, and we had to, like, write an agreement that basically said there was no exchange of funds. This is non-producing income, because
yep,
that would impact the VA side of the loan, and I think VA loans a lot of people I get I closed a VA loan here earlier this year, and it's like I was representing the sellers in that scenario. It's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
like there's potentially more hoops to jump through. It was an older home, and
Yep.
it went through without a problem. I mean, like, knock on wood. But
Yeah.
you're right. Like, they have the appraisal, and then it's like a miniature inspection. It's not really an inspection, but it's like, okay, it
Right.
has to have all these different parameters. If there's more than 3 steps, there's got to be a guardrail. All the
Yep.
different like little tiny little things that most older house probably don't have.
Yeah. And
And
that adds
so,
up quick. That
yeah,
adds up quick, and that can be a deterrent whenever you're trying to negotiate and everything. And then you're good with it the way it is, but the VA inspectors are coming back saying, "Nope, you got to have it." So I mean,
yep,
someone's got to foot that bill, and if you can swing that and you're good with it, then great. But um, there's having a house on it was good because you also have the ability to buy land with a VA construction loan, just buy the raw land,
hmm,
and then with the intent of putting a house on it at some point and fund it that way. So we had looked at some raw land like that too, but ultimately with this property, ended up not deciding to go with the VA loan, and then just looked at conventional because that was the most Loctite thing that we
yeah,
could. Obviously, rates are not super great right now, but they're close to, I mean, the historical average, but they just sting a little bit coming off
yeah,
the 2020
yeah,
like
for
buying
sure,
market. Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah,
that
definitely.
was a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, definitely a far cry from 2020, but they have gone down here quite a bit. And then
Yeah.
I was just talking with the client here earlier this week where it's silly to say, but I look at Poly Market to decide if the Fed's likely going to
Yeah.
lower rates again. And so, there's still a chance that the Fed's going to lower rates here in December too. But we've had a couple rate cuts throughout this year, but that has to be a challenge. And then, like, I don't know how close you've seen this, where they've talked about transferring your mortgage rate to a new home.
I did
Uh,
see that.
I wonder if
Yep.
that's actually gonna happen or all the details into that, but if that does happen, I feel like
Oh man.
there's a lot of pent-up demand right now that would go berserk, in my opinion.
I would imagine so. I'm optimistic that that would happen. Whether that's going to happen in reality or not, because I'd imagine that's a good chunk of change the banks are losing whenever someone goes into a much more expensive house at the
Yeah.
same rate that they are. But that would be awesome. But for this one, we actually ended up finding talked to did some network and everything, found someone that was willing to do private lending,
Mm,
and that dropped the rate significantly to just above what's required by the IRS, so right
mhm.
around like upper fours. But that
Yeah.
was extremely helpful. So that's what we ended up rolling with. I mean, literally exhausted every type of creative funding that we could to get this because we knew it was a stretch. But at the same time, I sat there and we talked and thought like, um, this is probably the cheapest over my lifetime that this land will ever be. Just generalization with land appreciation at some point, like this is probably during my lifetime the cheapest that it will ever be.
Yeah.
10 years from now, when I want to retire and buy land, then my kids are going to be older. The expenses are not going to be any cheaper. Like there's always something that's going to come up. So we are like,
Yeah.
this is probably our best shot to do this.
Yeah. That's a really wise approach because you're right. It's probably, barring nothing crazy happens, on a
Right.
in a 10-year average, it's probably gonna be close to twice as expensive as what it is right now. I mean,
Yep.
just looking at
Which is
compounding.
crazy to say.
It
But I
is
mean,
crazy.
it's been the truth for the past however long, and I mean, over our lifetimes already, there's already been a net gain on appreciation, on land and everything like that. So that was kind of our last little bit of motivation that we needed. And the amount of times that I've listened to your episodes where everybody's like, "Just do it now, just rip the band-aid off and
Yeah.
just do it." I was like, "Oh, that's what we're gonna do."
Buckland Funding. If you don't know who they are and you're looking to buy a piece of ground, I encourage you to reach out to them. They're chartered in multiple states across the Midwest, and they understand recreational land. I've said it a million times here on the podcast. The most important piece of buying your first piece of ground is finding a partner, finding a bank that understands what you're trying to do, that has competitive rates and understands the world of recreational land, because not all banks are created equal, and Buckland Funding understands our crazy goals of scooping up a piece of ground to enjoy it with family, to hunt it, to use it as an investment. They understand that and work with that every single day. I encourage you to reach out to them. If you're in the process of buying your first or 20th farm, reach out to Buckland Funding at bucklandfunding.com. Back to the conversation. So are you guys going to sell your Georgia house then? Or are you going to rent it
We
out
are
or?
we are ended up gonna sell it just to minimize a little bit of risk for us, so that we
Yeah.
have some extra capital coming from that, and then um, just being out of state, I didn't really want to deal with the whole property management side of that. And it's not super easy for me to get down there. It costs money to go down there to look at that house. Um, so we ended up just deciding to get rid of that one.
So I would imagine it would probably sell relatively quick, knowing that it's in a military area where there's probably like a fair amount of turnover, or is that not? I don't know anything about where you're at. I'm just assuming.
Yeah, yeah, that's normally true for summer and fall. And
Okay.
go figure, when
Yeah.
we decided to do it, we had just missed that last wave of like fall PCSs and everything.
Yeah.
So we're kind of hurting a little bit from that, but I'm optimistic that it'll sell. It's a super high demand area anyway, just because of everybody flooding the Savannah.
Mhm.
The growth there has just been exponentially high over the past few years. So it'll sell, and hopefully before we leave. But it's just tough market kind of all around right now.
How much did it sting on that first deal that you guys really liked and really wanted for that to fall apart? Were you just kind of like, well, it wasn't meant to be, we'll move on, or is still in the back of your mind like, son of a gun, I wish we could have got that done.
It's a little bit of both, and it took a long time to get to the point where I was like, man, that was for the better. And I think because I had just romanticized everything, like I had already built out my
Yeah.
life of what it was going to be on this property. Like, I'm going to kill this deer. I'm going to get done deer hunting. I'm going to go take my kids down to the trout stream. We're going to trout fish. I'm going to duck hunt
Yeah.
on this. Like everything,
Yeah.
with the barn and everything. So, and my wife had done the same things, and it's tough not to when you find a property that you love. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
only reason that you buy a property, because you love that much and you have all these plans and things you want to do on it. So we were already making memories in our head,
Yeah.
beforehand. So that one did sting, and it's still sitting on the market. So I mean, it's up for grabs for somebody else. But I think this property, um, will be equally as good, if not a little better, just based on our goals as a family. So
Yeah.
it always ends up working out.
Yeah, no, it always does for sure. And then the longer time goes, the more you realize that it did work out for the best too. I feel is
Yeah, 100%.
definitely a real thing. Um, as far as so, just to loop back to the conventional financing, it just didn't really pan out, and you're like, okay, we had to go get creative, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, we were locked in and ready to go with conventional, and then my realtor, my mom, and my wife got to talking, and they just kind of brainstormed this, um, together and figured out like, hey, if we could find someone to do some private lending, like that would put us in a little bit better of a spot
Hmm.
month to month with payment and everything like that. Um, So it really wasn't anything outside of just a shot in the dark that ended up working out.
Yeah,
Um, Otherwise, we would end up just going with conventional, just
yeah,
straight through, and then hoped rates dropped and we could refinance at some point. We were okay with that.
yeah. No, I think that makes perfect sense. Um, was there any other lessons throughout this? Because I know you had mentioned, was there something that had to get fixed on this property before you got it under contract, or was that the other one?
It was so the septic system was completely shot. So that
Okay.
took some navigation as well. There was only one spot just based on proximity to the well that the drain field could go in.
Hmm.
Um, but since there was an old existing drain field there, they couldn't do it. So took a lot of coordination between the conservation easement, because now that puts our septic system outside of that minimal protection area that I had talked
Hmm.
about into the standard protection area. So they had to bless off on that. That's normally a 60-day approval window that they have to get back to you.
Oh wow.
Luckily, because I had went out and talked to that guy, um, at the conservation, he's like, "These people are the right folks for this
I was just gonna
property.
say that.
Like,
Yeah.
we have to get them into this house, so we're going to expedite this." And it was same day that they
Wow.
went out there, and they're like, "Yep, this is good to go. This is a necessity for the house so that you can live here. We acknowledge that it's going to be in the standard protection area, but you got the green light." So took a little bit of finagling, but we got it done. But it just really reiterated how important it is to build those relationships early and be proactive about things, because he wrote this long email to the seller's agent and to the septic enforcement or the sewage enforcement officer for the township, and was like,
Hmm.
hey, Logan was proactive. He came in, he told us this may be an issue. It's not currently an issue yet because I didn't know when I went in there, but I just kind of gave them a heads up. This may be coming down the pipe for you
Hmm.
guys. I just want you to be aware. Um, and he stated that in his email, and the entire board was ready for it and approved that as soon as it came across their desk.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the same consensus with Jared too. It's like uh, approaching that situation from a collaborative effort rather than like
100%.
you're a pain in my butt and I have to jump through these hoops because of you guys.
Yeah,
Totally different outcome. Totally
it
different
is.
outcome. Yeah.
It is, absolutely. If you're adversarial about that, to any level, it's just not gonna work out for both parties, and luckily, the seller's agent has been great. It's an executor and executrix, for this property because it's an estate.
Hmm.
Um, they were super easy to work with and extremely happy that a young family was getting the property too. So it was 100% a collaborative effort through this entire process to get to a common goal for all of us to win.
Yeah.
So it was a good process through and through, much better than the first time. So it was a breath of fresh air that we weren't going to go through that again. But yeah, it all worked out.
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, a lot of it I feel is just rooted to how you communicate. And obviously, you guys have done an exceptional job of that. Is there anything in your story that you would want someone else to know that, a lot of times it's these conversations are related to buying their first farm, but you guys are buying your first farm with a house adjoined to it. But is there anything that you wish you would have known beforehand or something that you maybe learned that would be helpful for someone that is maybe relocating, maybe moving back to home, and they're like, "Man, it's the dream to live on a house with 10 acres, 20 acres, 30 acres, 50 acres, whatever it is," that you
Yeah,
think would be helpful for those folks?
I do. I think um, putting feelers out off market to a lot of the locals in the area that you want to be is a really good way to get your foot in the door. Um, if they are not ready to sell, chances are they probably know somebody else who's getting ready to become ready to sell.
Mhm.
Just based on the current age of a lot of landowners in America right now,
Yep.
it's a lot of them is an older population. There's a piece of property that's I think 158 acres adjoining ours, and that landowner they just died, and that property is going to auction. So I
Mm.
mean, if you can get in there before any of that stuff happens to these landowners and talk like, "Hey, I'm interested." You may get some good feedback, you may not, but it's not going to hurt you. And I think the biggest piece of advice that I would recommend to anybody is is like you guys all say is just do it. There are many ways to get creative
Mhm.
to finance a property or um, you know things that you can do on your property to give you a quick return, or even not so quick, but in like 5 to 10 years, give you a return. We're looking at doing some agroforestry, chestnut operations on some of the agriculture.
Mhm.
So there's definitely options. There's ways to get creative. If you can't do it right now, then I mean, and you have the ability to go do some work on a farm, and you can get an FSA loan. I mean, that may get you in the door on a piece of property that would be out of reach otherwise.
Yeah.
Um, so listening to your podcast, it's not a shameless plug, but I mean it's a super great resource, and it is. And I again, I mean it when I say it. It is the only reason that I'm sitting here having this conversation with you because otherwise we would have 100% settled on a 1 to 2 acre property with like we've
Yeah.
always lived in and
Yeah.
tried to do it later in life, and who knows if it would have worked out or not.
Yeah. Well, now you guys get to enjoy it for 10 extra years,
I
ahead of
know it.
schedule.
We're
And
yeah,
so,
we're
like,
excited about
your
that
kids are gonna make 10 more years of memories on the property and, like, all those different things that come along with that, and,
big time.
I don't know, I feel like being a kid and growing up where you have a little bit of acreage is just, a phenomenal experience for the parents and the kids for sure. What do you tell to
Absolutely.
someone that thinks that they can't afford a property like this? Like, they're like, "Well, Logan, man, he's a super lucky and he probably makes like $1 million a year because he's working on some secret chopper that no one knows about."
Man, don't I wish if I was making that much money, I'd be somewhere else. But yeah, um, definitely don't make a ton of money by any means. Definitely blue collar. Um, I think the biggest thing is talking to a lender of somebody and seeing like what your true buying power is.
Yeah.
What you can buy and what you think you can buy may be two vastly different numbers. And there is a little bit of risk, but you have to be okay with being a little bit uncomfortable if you're at the top end of what you can afford.
Mhm.
That was definitely the case for us, but there is also, I think, I call it fun equity that is just as important when you're buying a piece like that. So there's the financial side of things of, building some positive equity, but at the same time, you got to think, what memories can you build on that piece of property? Does this give you the quality of life that you want and envision yourself having? And for us, I mean, it checked all the boxes from moving around to living in subdivisions for the past 10 years because I couldn't settle down long enough anywhere just based on the active duty PCS schedule.
Hmm.
And being someone who hunting is my passion, and that's the only other hobby that I have. Like I don't golf, I don't do anything like that. It's all hunting. So that was tough. So being able to buy a piece of land where I don't ever have to worry about losing permission, paying a lease, don't have to worry about that property like being developed or anything else being developed around it because it's already developed as it's going to be, um, was huge.
Hmm.
So there are creative ways to do it. Find yourself a great realtor. I know a lot of people think that they can do all that stuff themselves, and that may be just based off of some of the COVID interactions with realtors that people had. Of the house went on the market, they had 20 offers, didn't have to do much. But for people like you, for people who've been in the game for a little while, like my mom and everything, who have done real estate, ridden the ups and the downs. They know a lot of intricacies and they know a lot of people, lenders,
Hmm.
um, title folks that can figure out ways to get you into a house and make
Yeah.
sure that you're going to be okay.
A lot of these deals, it takes a team. Like
A hundred
it
percent.
takes a team. And if you don't have a team, it might not end up as rosy as otherwise. And I get there's I don't know. It's probably just because my algorithm, because I'm a real estate agent, but there's a lot of
Yeah,
content that just dogs agents, and I
it
get it.
does. Yeah,
I get it. I totally get it because there's good agents, there's bad agents, there's okay agents,
100%.
and if you're yeah, I think that's a really good piece of advice because it does take a team, especially with
It
something like
does.
that.
It does.
It's
And that
someone with
may be,
experience.
at the negotiating table too, the realtor may have, a good relationship with the selling agent that you previously wouldn't have had. So that may get you a lot farther than what you think as well.
Hmm.
And what the sellers are willing to do and, the agreements that you can find. I think seller financing, I've heard you guys talk about
Yeah.
that, is super underrated and super um, it's not publicized that much.
Hmm.
And obviously I think because the banks are probably not super stoked for people to do seller financing,
Yeah.
but that can be a really great way to get your foot in the door on a property. And chances are, if it's an older farmer or something like that, like they may be just as excited to do it because it's not a lot of risk for them. They're
Hmm.
guaranteed to get their mailbox money from you,
Yeah. If you don't
and
pay, they get it back.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. Sell it again. And they're not, taking a lot of risk with the market being super aggressive with their funds. So if they're getting a check every now and then or every month from you for 35, $4,000 or whatever it is for your
Hmm.
property, like that's a win for them.
Hmm. Do you think you guys will be on this property forever? Or at least 40 years, 30 years, 10 years?
Man, I don't know. That's tough. I could see us being here through at least my kids graduating college, but then with all the tools out there of 1031 exchanges and everything like that, like I'm already focused on how can I buy my next piece
I love
and
that. Isn't that
what can
funny?
I do? Like, yes, trying to figure it out. So
Yeah.
it's a process. Getting that first one in your first notch in your belt, though, I think is the biggest hurdle and probably is the most daunting
Yeah.
for a lot of people. So gonna be uncomfortable, but it's gonna be okay. And you just got to make the jump and just do it.
I love it. Well, Logan, is there anything else you want to share here today?
No, Jake, I appreciate you having me on. Like I said, I give a lot of credit to you and everybody that you have on your show. It's may not feel like super special to you guys. I don't know, speaking for you, but I will tell you to people like me who is looking to buy in their first piece and other pieces, it's invaluable information. And in the day and age that we are with information being so readily available, having a podcast that I can listen to on the way to work, it's teaching me how to achieve my goals with property and land and how to maximize, equity on it and set up the farm for hunting and everything, bounce back and forth between your land podcast, your whitetail podcast. Like
Mm.
it's just a phenomenal tool. And I really appreciate you doing all the legwork and the guests that you guys have on of diving in depth because it's a day-to-day reality for you guys. So I know whenever you live something day to day, um, it kind of fades into the blackness of that's just your day-to-day grind. But
Mhm.
for listeners like me, it was incredibly crucial and critical information to have, and is the only reason that we're sitting here
Man,
having this conversation.
that means
So
a
I
lot.
appreciate you.
That's why I started this podcast, this conversation right here. I mean, because
Yep,
there was a point where I was like, man, I need to know more. And so that's awesome to hear. I really appreciate the kind
yeah,
words, and
absolutely.
it's super cool. If someone, I always give people the opportunity, if someone wants to reach out to you, is there a good way to do that? Or if you don't want people to reach out to you, that's okay too.
No, yeah, that's fine. I'm always happy to do some knowledge sharing. My Instagram is L Shulenberger 18. So first initial, last name, and then 18. And feel free to shoot me any messages or anything like that, and I will point you in the right direction to somebody like yourself or
Yeah.
any of your other guests if I don't know the
Yeah.
answer for it. So really appreciate it, Jake.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Logan. Congratulations once again.
Yeah, thank you.